Hello everyone, my name is Zahir and today we'll learn how to implement OAuth2 authentication in MCP Server. Before I actually walk you through the details in the code, I first want to actually run the application itself and show you how that works. So I have the server here, which is the OAuth MCP server with OAuth implementation running here. And as you can see, I was able to test it a few times, but let me actually run the client now. Okay. I know you're already seeing the code, but I just want to run the client and show you what is the error that we get first. All right, so we have received a 401 unauthorized error from the server. And the reason being is that I was obviously passing it a dummy authentication token, but let me this time pass a valid one and see what happens. I obviously have the server running. I just started the client and the client was able to, establish a connection. And as you can see, it has started talking to the MCP tools and it has returned a response. All right. Now let me go back to the slide and talk about what we learn. We learn how to use a service called auth0. You could use any service provider, authentication service provider, maybe a cloud service provider, Okta or anything to basically build this. But today we'll be using auth0, which is basically a free service so that you can experiment and learn how to build this. We'll obviously build an end-to-end flow here. We'll start with the client, we'll build the client, we'll obviously build the, establish the connection with the auth0 service, and obviously, we'll write the SSE server as well. And you will also see how we'll use JSON web key set keys to verify JWT verification and to secure the MCP SSE server in Python. All right, with that, I quickly want to show you the auth0 or I'm sorry, the auth0 service. And I mean, the reason I'm using auth0 service is it's free and you can essentially build this. And if you want to see how to build this, just go to login to the auth0 service using your GitHub account. And in the applications, just create one application for yourself. I have already done that. You can see here, and you will get your domain as well as the client ID and secret. And if you go to quick start, you'll also get the curl command or the Python script to essentially generate the token. What you should be doing is essentially creating an environment file, environment variable file that looks something like this, and not the auth0 domain, the auth audience, the client ID and client secret. Once you have established that, you are good to essentially start working on the code. I've already written the code. In the interest of time, I'm going to quickly walk you through this. And then I think the easiest way to do this is using using a debugger. But before I actually talk about the before I actually talk about the code, I want to quickly show you the flow. Okay, so here's what we'll be doing. The client, which is basically an MCP client, which is part of an MCP host, in this case, a chat application or the CLI that we have, we will essentially, that is the client will essentially, log into the auth0 service, and it'll obviously use the client ID and the client secret to log into the service, and it'll request for the access token. The auth0 service returns a signed RS-256. RS-256 is an asymmetric algorithm to returns the JWT token, which is basically the access token to the client. Now the client, along with the token, it adds the word bearer to the token and uses the authorization header to send the token to the MCP server. Basically, establishes tries establishing a connection with the MCP server. The MCP server validates whether the signature and the claims, that the claims being the audience, issuer, and whether the token is expired or not. It validates all of that using the same auth0 service. And if the validity is established, then the connection is established. That means if the token is valid, the connection is established. The SSE stream is open. Otherwise, the server essentially returns a 401 unauthorized status. All right. And now this is a very simple setup. You could replace the Auth0 service with your own company authentication service. It should be the same. All right. All right. And the kind of authentication that we have established here is that's just how you would establish, an authentication layer on top of APIs for your systems. The idea here is that we are communicating, with another machine. That is, one machine is communicating with another machine. So it's ideally we should have the same level of authentication that we would have in an APIs, right? All right. With that established, let me quickly take you to the code now, and we will debug the code and understand what's happening in each and every step. Okay. So I have the server running. I'm going to stop it now. And turn on the debugger. We'll just wait for the server to start. Now, for folks who have been, following this particular series, you already know that, I have already covered the basics of how to create an MCP server and, add MCP tools and others. I'll share the YouTube, channel and the playlist with you guys. In fact, let me quickly do that. If you go to the channel and if you go to the playlist, you will see there is an MCP playlist here, and you'll have all the videos covered there. This is the thumbnail. Now let me go back to the code again. All right, so I have the MCP server running. Now I'm going to quickly start the, basically I'm going to run the client as well now. The idea is that I simulate how the token works. In the beginning, I showed you that if I send an incorrect token, how we receive the 401 status from the MCP server. Now this time, I'm going to send an actual token and we'll debug each and every line that we've written in the server. Okay, so I'm going to start the server now. Let me see if I have the breakpoints added in the right place. Yeah, I think we have. Okay, so I'm going to run the client. I'm sorry, this is not what I wanted to do. I want to run the client. Yeah, I'm going to run the client here again. And once the client starts running, that is after generating the token, it was able to establish the connection here. I'll quickly show you the client code. This is the endpoint of the MCP server it is trying to hit, and that's exactly what it did. It was able to establish the connection and essentially, send the essentially send the request here to this particular endpoint, that is the SSE endpoint. All right. Now, as we can see, the idea here is that in this SSE endpoint, we want to be able to handle the authorization header and check if the header has the token. And if it has the token, that is the bearer token, we want to be able to validate and verify the validity of the token. And if the token is valid, we want to, establish the connection, that is allow the SSE stream. And if not, we basically return the 401 response. So let's see what we have here. So what we're trying to do here is basically read the header, the authorization header, and that's exactly what the client sent. Let me go back to the client. And if you see, this is what is the key that we are sending as part of the header: authorization, followed by the word bearer and the token that we just received in the get token method. Okay. Now I'll come back to the server file now. Let me go to the next line. So we were able to extract the value of the authorization header key, and as you can see, I have the bearer token. What I want to do is basically lower every word in the header or every letter in the header to lowercase, and then check if it starts with the word bearer in lowercase, and if it does, I simply want to remove the word bearer and only take basically split this by space and take the token. And as you can see, I have the token now. And once I have the token, I'm also handling the if I'm not sending, if the client is not sending the header authorization bearer token as part of the header, and it's sending it as part of the access that is URL parameter, we should be able to handle that. Anyway, now I have the token, and what we will do now is basically send it to this very important method called verify JWT token, and I have written this method in the same file. So let me go to that particular method. Now, what this method does is basically, as you can see, it validates, verifies the validity of the JWT token. Now, there are multiple steps in how to do this. This is the most important, interesting piece I'd like your attention here. Let me just quickly set this up. All right. So what we are trying to do here is we are essentially trying to extract the header information from the JWT token, that is JSON Web Token, and verifying the signature. The idea here is that we want to establish the unique key ID, and once I basically run this particular statement, you will see what I mean by that. So now, once I have run this using the JWT package, that is the get unverified header from the tag token, I have something called as a unique key ID, which is basically the key ID from the token. And I'm also seeing that the token type is JWT, obviously, and the algorithm that was used was RS256. Great. I will extract the key ID. And the next thing that I want to do is I want to essentially check, I want to look up the matching public key from the JWS key set. And now what is the JWS key set? Let me quickly show you where I'm getting this from. On startup, what I was able to do was I used the auth0 domain, that is the auth0 domain that we created here in the environment variable, that is this particular domain and this particular auth audience key. I established that, and I also established a URL called .well-known JWKS. The idea here is that the auth providers usually make all the public keys that they have available, available for the servers to implement, so that you can actually do a simple lookup against the public keys with the key ID that you just received here. So that's exactly what we are doing. You'll see a timeout error, which should be don't worry about it, because I'm in debug mode and the client has not received any message. That's why. Anyway, so what we're trying to do here is we're checking if the auth0 service provider's public keys has our key ID as well. Our key ID is basically this one that we just extracted from the token, and obviously the key ID is present as part of the as part of the JWKS key set, and it has also extracted a few things, and you will see what. So what we are trying to do here is we are converting the JSON web key into a RSE public key object, and this will be used to verify the token's signature essentially. And you will see how we will do that, right? So I'm using this method that we just imported in here from the JWT library, from jwt.algorithms, RSA algorithm. That's what we'll be using to essentially extract the signature. Let me go back to that particular method. So I have extracted the public key, and I have the object that is the RSA public key object. And what I'll do is I'll use the JWTs decode method to essentially verify the signature of the public key, enforce the algorithm. The algorithm in this case is RS256, and also validate the audience claim. That means I will check if the token is meant for the same API. That means the token that I received, the token that was generated, use the same API that I have access to. And I have access to, I'm sorry. And I'm gonna just quickly go there. And we'll also check if the claim, that is the tenant, is basically the same tenant, which is in this case is the auth0 tenant or not. Okay. And I'll simply just create the payload object, and we return the payload object. So everything has been verified. Everything is good. Now we simply validate that. Now we know that the token is validated, and we simply allow the SSE stream connection to be established with the client. The client shut it down, obviously, as you can see, because I was in debug mode, so it did not receive any message. So there was a HTTP timeout error. But essentially, this is how we establish the connection with the. This is how we establish the connection with the MCP server. That's it, guys. The rest of the methods here are very simple. Let me quickly walk you through this. Oh yeah, one more thing that I want to show you, something that you have seen in the previous methods that we have tried establishing. If you remember from the previous tutorials, how we essentially established the MCP server was that is MCP server on top of a FastAPI application was using Starlet. But there was another interesting way that I found out. I don't need Starlet to do that. I can still create an ASGI object and a custom ASGI object and mount it exactly the way we have done here. Let me show you that part. This is from the previous tutorials. This is some examples that you'll find online as well, where MCP, the original SDK, also uses Starlet as the ASGI application. And as you can see, these are the two routes that we have established. And we are not doing this. We are using FastAPI to do that, but we are also building a custom ASGI application to handle that for us. So if I go back to our current implementation, we have built this wrapper, ASGI wrapper, and we are mounting that to the messages. Now the messages is basically the ASGI app that handles all the post messages that comes from the server essentially. So if you look at this, I'm sorry, if this is that particular wrapper, it essentially returns an ASGI application. But what it essentially does is, let me quickly set this up. Yeah, so what it essentially does is, it authenticates, it checks if the scope of this particular request that is coming in to this ASGI wrapper is an HTTP request, and it does pretty much the same thing that we do in the SSE endpoint. It checks whether the header has the authorization key, and if it does, it checks, it extracts the bearer token, and it basically sends it to the same verify JWT method. And if the token is validated, it simply returns the ASGI object. That's it, as simple as that. Now let me stop the debugger and actually run the method. Like I told you guys, the MCP tools are from the previous tutorials, right? The MCP tool is the time tool, and the weather tool, it does the same thing. Now I'm gonna run this particular server again, and we'll also run the client. I'm just gonna clear screen here, and you will see how it handles. So let me show you what are the queries that we are trying to send to the server. There are just two queries. What is the time in Bengaluru and what is the weather like right now in Bengaluru? So let me scroll up and run the client and we'll see what is happening. So it was generating the token. The token was generated. It connected to the MCP server. Just allow me a second, guys. Something's happened. Oh yeah, I think I have VPN issues. Let me fix that. Sorry about that. I'm going to clear screen and run this again. I'm sorry. All right, I'm going to run the client again. You will see that we should be able to establish. Yeah, we were able to generate the token. The token was generated. Now we established the MCP connection. I'm going to come from the top. We were able to connect with the weather and the time SSE server, which is what our server is. Now, if I show you, yeah, anyway, I think you guys have seen that. Now the server was connected, and you can see that it is. I'm just logging all the tool set that I have. I have two tools, which is the time tool and the weather tool. And the first query was, you are a helpful. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm just printing the uh, you know the I'm just printing the prompt that we have, and also the query. Let me see what the query was. The query from the user is the first query is, what is the name? What is the time in Bengaluru? So the tool was essentially, sorry, the LLM was essentially able to identify that for this particular query, the relevant tool is a time tool, and the tool LLM also called, or basically the flow also called the time tool using the MCP server, and the response from the tool was, the tool response is the current time is this in Bengaluru, which it is. It's 7 in the morning, and we are doing the same thing for the next query again, and the query is, what is the weather like right now in Dubai? And the LLM rightly identified that the tool that it needs is the weather tool, and it also called the tool, which is the weather tool in the MCP server. The MCP server executed that, sent the response back, and the LLM finally generated the response as, the weather in Dubai is overcast clouds with 31.76 degrees centigrade or 76 degrees Celsius. All right, guys, I hope this was useful. I hope this was easy to consume. I'm going to add the entire code to the same GitHub repo. Let me actually open the GitHub repo here. It's here in MCP Labs, and you will see that in MCP auth SSE, and it would be here OAuth. All right, so it's already added. You can see that there will be detailed comments on how to use this. So please, go ahead and play around with this. What you'd need is obviously the OpenAI API key. It's very cheap. I'd very strongly recommend that you actually invest some time, or you could use any free tier in any of the cloud providers, but definitely use an actual LLM to understand how that works. And obviously, if you like this video and if you want more such content, please share your comments and also share the video with your friends. This would encourage me to create more such content. Thank you so much for your time. You have a wonderful day. Thank you.